Welcome to this brief discussion on a really important issue for Christians. And we're going to talk about something that's really going to be big for young people, really going to affect them. And we're talking with our Head of Education, John Denning. Welcome.
Thank you.
Well, there's huge controversy at the moment over the gender recognition bill going through the Holyrood Parliament in Edinburgh, John. And really, what does the bill do?
Well, the Scottish Government wants to allow people to self-identify their sex, so that a man can identify as a woman or vice versa. Of course, no one can really change their sex. Back in 2004, when the original Gender Recognition Act was passed, it affirms a falsehood. It means a man can get a birth certificate that says he was born a girl. But what's happening at the moment is the Scottish Government is wanting to amend that so that people can just declare themselves whatever gender. They don't need to have any approval by doctors. At the moment, 2 doctors are needed to approve it, and they just have to have lived for 3 months in their acquired gender instead of 2 years. And one of the most concerning things is also the decrease in the age. So instead of it being something that you can do as an adult from age 18 onwards, that's brought down to age 16.
So what message will the bill send out to children?
Well, it'd be telling 15-year-olds that if they want to change gender, they can. The law will affirm that as soon as they turn 16. It doesn't matter what their parents think. It doesn't matter what doctors think.
Now, is it true that young people are being misled by gender ideology?
Yes, I think that's already happening on a large scale. But this is going to make that worse because for a number of reasons, really. I think one because, as I've said, it's telling 15-year-olds the law will recognise this. It doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. On your 16th birthday, you can be in that position. It's affirming them in the sex they think they are. It's the ultimate, really, in social transition. It's the law itself saying, for all purposes, you are what you think you are, even though that's not reality.
Yeah, and this would apply to girls and boys. And are girls and boys equally affected by this, or are there more than one than the other?
It used to be the case that it was many more boys than girls, but the position's now reversed. Over the last 6 or 7 years, there's been a massive increase in teenage girls who've had no history at all of being uncomfortable with their gender, suddenly declaring that they are of the opposite sex or that they're non-binary. And that's a real concern. I mean, it can lead them to pursue medical treatment, which can stop their puberty occurring as normal at the normal time. That will then almost certainly lead on to cross-sex hormones, which will permanently alter their body and even then onto surgery, and they can be left infertile, they can be left mutilated, really, in some cases even disabled.
Now, the current law requires a medical diagnosis, and the bill scraps that completely, doesn't it? So why would it be a good thing to keep it?
Well, the truth is that many of these young people who are presenting with distress around their gender have other things going on in their lives as well. So the Sandyford Clinic in Scotland, which provides the NHS treatment in Scotland, itself in its own figures shows that a large proportion have other mental health issues such as depression or anxiety, and a large minority have autism as well. So in fact, the proposed new guidelines for NHS England say that there must be experts in paediatric medicine, in autism, in neurodisability and in mental health, as well as gender specialists involved in treatment so that they can pick up and potentially treat some of these other conditions. But if you remove any medical involvement from the process, those things won't get picked up on.
Yeah, so there's a whole host of conditions that a Christian would say, yep, that's real, somebody can be helped.
Yes.
We don't agree with the idea of changing your sex, but we do think there's a whole host of anxiety conditions, depression, autism, where people can be helped
Indeed.
in one way or the other. Now, the argument that's used is that 16-year-olds are really old enough to make this decision. How would you respond to that?
Well, I think most parents of 16-year-olds would disagree, but of course the Scottish Government thinks it knows better. So 16-year-olds, they can't have a tattoo, they can't place a bet. There's a whole host of things that they can't do, and yet the Scottish Government's proposing, well, they can change their sex and don't care what the parents think.
Yeah, yeah. Now we've really focused on children today, and that is an area of a really grave concern to Christians and to us. But in the media, a big concern has been for women's spaces. Could they be affected too?
Yes, I think so. So, I mean, women and girls should never be put in a position where their spaces are that a biological man can come into their spaces and that be forced upon them. But if you say legally that's not a man, that's a woman, it makes it much more difficult to deal with that.
Yeah, yeah. So this is a really concerning issue for Christians, and if it happens in Scotland, there will be huge pressure to extend it to the rest of the UK, and no doubt there might be even some trans tourism, people going up to Scotland. Really concerning issue. So what can Christians do about this?
Well, we must pray. I mean, please do pray. This has been unusually controversial in the Scottish Parliament. It's unusual to find SNP MPs voting against their party or abstaining. There's even been a minister who's resigned over this issue. So we can be encouraged, I think, that these concerns are coming to light. But we need to pray for our MSPs there, that they would have the courage. Those who have doubts and haven't yet stood up will have the courage to stand. And those who have taken a stand are now under pressure will stick to their guns. And that in his purposes, the Lord will use these people to bring this bill down, or at the very least amend it to remove the reduction in age from 18 to 16.
Great. Well, thank you very much, John, for explaining that so clearly. Thank you.